Okay, so today we'll be talking about classifying polynomials by degree and writing them in standard form. So first of all, we have a little bit of vocabulary. A monomial is a number, a variable, or the product of numbers and variables. You have to have positive exponents, and it can be a constant or a single variable. So I have some examples and some non-examples down below. So if you look here, we just have the number 5. It's just a number, but it is technically considered a monomial. If I have just a variable like x, that is a monomial. And then here I've got 2 that are products of numbers and variables. So on the other side here, the reason that negative 0.3 times x to the negative 2 is a product, but the problem is I have a negative exponent. So it's not a polynomial because of the negative exponent. And then 4x minus y, is it a product? What's a product mean we're doing? Multiplying. Only this time we're subtracting. So what do you call it when you subtract? What's the answer to a subtraction problem? No, that's addition. Difference, right? Okay, so this one's a difference. It's not a product. So that's why it's not a monomial. It's actually a binomial, but we haven't gotten there yet. But it's not a monomial because we're subtracting. And then this last one is a quotient, 2 divided by x cubed. Not a product. Because if I wrote that, another way I could write that would be 2 times x to the negative 3. So anytime there's x's on the bottom, it's really, it's the same as having a negative exponent. So it's not a monomial. Okay? All right. The degree of a monomial is the sum of the exponents of the variables. And a constant has a degree of 0. And the reason a constant has a degree of 0 is because we assume that it's being multiplied by x to the 0 power. What is x to the 0 power? Anything to the 0 power equals 1. So that would just be 7 times 1, right? So anytime you just have a constant, which is just a number, right, then that means the degree is equal to 0. Because we just imagine that there's a variable with a 0 power there. Okay, so we've got some examples we'll go through, and then I'm going to have you guys do some on whiteboards too. So for example A, to find the degree, I just look at my exponents. 4 plus 3. What is 4 plus 3? 7. So the degree for that monomial is 7. It's that straightforward. Okay? That's it. Now on example B, I have an E and a D. It looks like there's no exponents, but when a variable doesn't have an exponent, what do we assume it has? It has a 1, right? The E has a 1 and the D has a 1. So it's actually second degree, okay? So you just have to watch out for that. We don't worry about the 7. The 7 doesn't do anything to change the degree, okay? All right, and the last one, what do you guys think? What did we say it was for a constant? It's just 0, yeah. Because again, we can think of it as being times x to the 0. So the degree equals 0. All right, so now I've got a couple for your whiteboards. All right, let's give that one a try. Okay. All right, next one. Yes. Okay, so we have a variable, so it's not going to be 0. There is a variable, so it's to the first degree. This one has a degree of 1, and this one I forgot to write down is a degree of 3. You guys had that right. All right, one more for your whiteboard before we move on. Oh, the first one was 3 because of the 2, and then you assume a 1 there. Yeah. Yeah. Yes. Uh-huh. Yep. Yeah. All right, looks like you guys are all getting it. This one is 6 because we have 2 plus 4. Okay, so a polynomial is a monomial or a sum or difference of monomials. So a sum, like we just talked about, is if you're adding things. Difference is if you're subtracting. So it could be as simple as just 7x squared. That's a monomial, but it's also a polynomial. Or you might have 3x minus 5. That's the difference of 2 monomials. So it's considered a polynomial. Or it might have a bunch of terms. It might be negative 3x plus 6x to the 5th minus 7x squared plus 5. That whole thing is a polynomial. And the degree of a polynomial is a degree of the term with the greatest degree. So now you're just looking for the monomial with the greatest degree. You do not add all of the exponents. Okay, so it's different than when we're finding it for a monomial. You do not add all of the exponents. Instead, you want to find the one that has the highest exponent, and it's called the leading term. So we only use the exponent of the leading term. Okay, the leading term is the one that has the highest degree. So if I look at my negative 3x plus 6x to the 5th minus 7x squared plus 5, which one of those terms, which one of the monomials in that polynomial has the highest degree? 5 is the highest degree, right? So the term that had the highest degree was the 6x to the 5th. And so, yes, the degree would be 5 for that polynomial. Standard form means you need to write the terms in order from the greatest to the least degree. So we start with the one with the highest degree, and then we go to the one with the lowest degree. So if I'm looking again at this polynomial up here, we said already that the highest degree was 6x to the 5th. Who's next in line? The negative 7x squared. And then we would have the negative 3x, and finally the 5. So that would be the standard form for that polynomial. A coefficient is just the number in front of a variable, so hopefully you guys have heard that term before, but basically just the number, and I guess technically this isn't a coefficient, so yeah, these are your coefficients here. Oops. And then the leading coefficient is the coefficient of the first term of the polynomial in standard form. So my leading coefficient for above is what? What's the number in front of the first term? 6. Okay. One thing you want to be sure you remember is that if a variable does not have a coefficient, there's assumed to be a 1 there, so it has a coefficient of 1. So for example, if I have x, x cubed minus 2x squared plus 7, even though there's nothing in front of the x cubed, I assume that there is a 1 there, so the leading coefficient would be 1. Does that make sense? Okay. Did you have a question? No? Pardon? Well, the term with the highest degree is the x cubed, right? And even though there was no 1 in front of it, we can always assume there's a 1 when there's no coefficient. Okay? And so that's why the leading coefficient is 1. Okay? All right, what if I have this situation? What if I have negative y to the 4th plus 2y cubed? What do you guys think about that? What do you think? Yeah, it's a negative 1. Because again, we can assume there's a 1 there. So in that case, the leading coefficient is negative 1. Yes, it can. It can be negative. Okay, any more questions about this? Yes. It doesn't matter that it's negative. It can't have a negative exponent, but it's okay if it has a negative coefficient. We're not going to ask you to do one with negative exponents because that's not a polynomial. We won't have any negative exponents with our polynomials, okay? All right. Okay, so now we're going to write the polynomials in standard form, and we're going to give the leading coefficient and the degree of the polynomial. So let's just start with this one first. So we've got 6x minus 7x to the 5th plus 4x squared plus 9. All right, so let's take a look, just at this first one. The highest degree is my x to the 5th, right? So that's going to be my first term. And remember that negative sign goes with the 7. So my leading term in this case is negative. And what's going to come after the 5th power? Who's next? The 4x squared, yeah. And then we have a positive 6x and a positive 9. So the leading coefficient for that one is equal to negative 7, and the degree is equal to 5. Oops, didn't mean to totally get rid of it. Okay. All right, next one. Now my highest degree is 6, so my first term is going to be y to the 6th, and then the y squared, positive y squared, and minus 3y. So even though there's nothing in front of the y, what can I assume is there? A 1. So the leading coefficient is 1, and the degree is 6. Okay. So once you're done writing that, I'm going to have you guys do this one on your whiteboards. First, go ahead and show it to me in standard form. Make sure you've got that right before you do the other part. Okay, so your standard form, I had to start with a negative x to the 5th, and then came plus 9x cubed minus 4x squared plus 16. So everybody, what was my leading coefficient? Everybody? And everybody, what is my degree? Here's one more for your whiteboard. Okay, so it was -3 y to the 8th plus 18 y to the 5th plus 14y. Leading coefficient was -3, and the degree is 8. And that's all I've got for you guys today.